If Mario, then only Bros. Super Mario Bros. Is a game that redefined what platforming games could be, and also just revolutionized the entire game concept as a whole. It wasn't the first in its genre, but it revolutionized it and made it more mainstream, just like how this video brought whatever that is into the mainstream. But if a fat Italian came onto the scene and did whatever he does in Super Mario Bros., and then changed the platforming genre forever, then what other games are the Super Mario Bros. Of their respective genres? You know, genres like FPS games, RPGs, or fighting games. Well, we take a look at those, and then some, on today's episode of... what was the show called again?
I was scrolling through Twitter, Elon Musk's X, formerly Twitter in parentheses, the Everything app, like I usually would on a Tuesday afternoon, and I came across this ad. It's for an upcoming indie game called aaaaand Party. Now, no shade to the developers, but when I watch this ad, all I can think of is how I've seen this exact game like 20 times. Immediately, my mind raced through all the physics-based party brawlers for hilarious gaming sessions with friends, as the ad describes it, and this game is legit just stick fight, but you can cling to surfaces with your hands. And then I remember the game Party Animals, which in 2021, I thought looked like Gang Beasts, but with animals. In 2023, it's Gang Beasts, but with animals. But then I put on my thinking cap. Was Gang Beasts the game that pushed this genre into the mainstream? I remember it coming out and all the Let's Players were playing it. People were talking about it a ton. But then the next one in the genre comes out trying to capture that exact same success, and it fails because what merit does it have? What new does it bring to the table? Now I might be hypocritical in criticizing something for not bringing anything new to the table. Pick any of my videos from early last year. Blue border there, glasses here, and oh my god, Scott the Waz just made a new video about annual release games, 8 months before he actually did. But I digress. Gang Beasts I might as well consider the Super Mario Bros. Of its genre. It was the first one I remember hearing about, and every game since its inception has taken its DNA and ran wild with it. However, let's go grander. Those were genres, sure, however, let's talk about stuff like FPS games, fighting games, and RPGs. So I have this whiteboard here, and we're going to be listing off genres on the whiteboard. Issue is I don't actually have a marker. I do know a trick. This is going to be hard to watch, so just bear with me now. Speedy! For first-person shooters, there's one game that immediately springs to mind. There is not a game like Doom, and there never will be. To be quite honest, I should be wondering what the Doom of certain genres are because of what this game started. Doom was a big enough deal that FPS games were called Doom clones until id Software's next game, Quake, came out. Since how could you make a Doom clone if you literally made Doom? Not only was it popular, but I truly believe the first Doom to be the gold standard of FPS titles. Wolfenstein 3D was cool, sure, but imagine going from this, with no textured floors or ceilings, to having that and verticality, and angular walls instead of every corner being a sharp 90 degrees, as well as having like 8 weapons instead of 4, all serving a different purpose other than this one shoots faster. On top of that, having an enemy roster that's basically been replicated in every first-person shooter since. Doom 2 even brought in ideas that are still present in FPS games, like the double-barrel shotgun. It's probably been done before in a first-person shooter, but the super shotgun in Doom 2 is the first one I can think of, and it wouldn't be outdone for another 26 years when the super shotgun in Doom Eternal attached a fucking grappling hook. It's a commonly known fact, too, that Doom at one point was installed on more computers than Windows. Now, to be fair, that was at the early days of Windows 95, so I mean, I kind of get it, but it's crazy, right? Plus, like, Doom had a huge role in founding the modern-day speedrunning and modding communities. I made a video about this last year. It doesn't go into extreme detail, but it's just interesting to note that. Like, the very first speedrunning website ever was dedicated just for Doom. Also, without Doom, online playing video games wouldn't really have been as popular. It's the first game to have a deathmatch mode, as the term was coined by co-creator John Romero. So, thanks, Mr. Romero. I got these squad wins.
It cannot be understated how much Doom contributed to the gaming sphere as a whole. And if I did understate that and you comment that, you have 9 days. Going from a genre I would consider one of my favorites to a genre that I am obligated to state I don't like, we're going to be talking about RPGs. I do actually like RPGs, I just want to say that, but if I say otherwise, there are multiple organized crime families who will do terrible things to me and my family. So, if you don't hit that like button, and if you don't press subscribe...
We heard you was talking about RPGs.
For RPGs, it's Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Green, Skabeloth, and Preparation H, or more concisely, Pokemon Gen 1. All these games are listed together on various sales charts. They're basically the same but with different creatures. Pokemon blew up with especially children, but also with everybody. Everyone wanted a piece of dat mon pie. While not necessarily a game changer in the RPG genre, it's not like it was completely unheard of, especially in Japan. Pokemon was super popular. It is the best-selling game in the genre, after all. It's one of the largest media franchises ever. Like, I've only played Red, Yellow, and Shield out of the entire series. Haven't gotten really far into any of those, but I was obsessed with Pokemon as a kid. This is my dusty-ass Pikachu plush from when I was 10 years old. I mean, let's be honest, the game literally extended the life of the Game Boy. Most consoles get succeeded after 6 or so years, but the Game Boy lasted about 9, and I think a lot of that was because Pokemon released very late into the system's life. There's absolutely no denying the sheer impact that the first ones had. Like, seriously, it's one of the flagship Nintendo franchises, despite not actually being a Nintendo franchise. There is an argument to be made, however, that Final Fantasy VII is the most influential RPG. While I don't think it got as big as Pokemon at the end of the day, FF7 was a huge system seller for Sony, and it really hit big with a more mature audience. I mean, like, shit, William Howard Taft's a big fan of the game. He's been rocking this hat for the new entry of the remake, and I don't even have it. I don't know where the fucking hat came from. While, by the time FF7 did come out, the RPG genre had been settled in for a while, FF7 did kind of make it way bigger than it already was, because, like, honestly, I never really thought of Pokemon as an RPG. Like, it absolutely is, but it never crossed my mind. But FF7, that's an RPG. Like, there's 16 games to go through, and Smash can only pick 2 characters from 7. That's something. It's just like how there's 6 mainline Street Fighter games, but only Ryu and Ken made it in Smash. Like, Fortnite has my baby girl Sakura, and you're telling me they couldn't even put in Chun-Li.
'Cause Super Smash Bros. Is a man's game. Street Fighter 2 would be the bros for the fighting genre. You take a look at fighting games before it, and some are fine, at best. This game's predecessor just fucking stinks. I made a whole video about that last year. Go watch it. Now. Or else. But it's true. I mean, Mortal Kombat, the first one. The other first one. The other first one! Wouldn't have been greenlit by Midway if it weren't for the success of Street Fighter 2. Streets of Rage 2, a Sega game, was inspired by Street Fighter 2 for its combat. It gave way for updates in video games because of how many different versions of this game was released.
I love Street Fighter 2, a game that's had so many revisions that it's a series of its own. I have a framed poster of Super Street Fighter 2 X, which is the Japanese title of Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, but let's also not confuse that with Street Fighter 2 Turbo or Super Street Fighter 2. It popularized arcades again in the 90s, since those were in a bit of a decline after the NES came around, and on top of that, the SNES port was a reason to buy the console. There were bundles in Europe with Street Fighter 2 included, and as far as I know, the only other third party to be included with the SNES is FIFA, and Killer Instinct, but around this time, Rare was a second party developer for Nintendo. But that is nuts. And here's something interesting. It's Wikipedia surface level info, but John Romero. Yeah, that guy. Creator of Doom. Yeah, he said the competitive aspect of Street Fighter 2 inspired the online deathmatch portion of Doom, which if you remember I did say influenced online gaming as a whole. While it wasn't like the first game to have head-on-head combat, it was the game to popularize it at first, because I think a large part of that is the character selection. Most fighting games pre-Streets just had 2 characters to play as that were the same, such as Street Fighter 1, which literally just had Ryu and Ken, which were the same. The original version of Street Fighter 2, though, has 8 characters to play as, which means you can get good as a specific character, then if you wanted to change it up a little, you can get good as another character that has a different playstyle.
Thanks for explaining fighting games for me, Elias.
No problem, Elias.
But it's not hard to deny the impact that Street Fighter 2 has, right?
Absolutely not. What do you think, Elias?
Yeah, it had a good impact.
No, it didn't.
Ha, you stupid fuck! So for puzzle games, it's gotta be Tetris. I mean, what other puzzle games do you think about when the genre gets mentioned? Dude, I love Kirby no Kirikiri Kids, the Japanese exclusive remake of Kirby Star Stacker, only released on the Super Famicom and the Satellaview service for a brief period of time. Okay, to be fair, I'm a fucking nerd.
Tetris is a game that even people who don't play video games have played. While Pokemon extended the Game Boy's life and might be a reason it's the 4th best-selling console ever, Tetris is the game that kicked the Game Boy into orbit and put it on track to becoming the 4th best-selling console ever. I think people bought Game Boys just to play Tetris. There was a Game Boy that survived an explosion in the Gulf War. And what was it playing? Tetris. Russian astronaut Serebrov A. Alexander was the first person to play a video game in space. And what was he playing on his Game Boy? Tetris. What was the main pack-in title for the system? Tetris. If there's any game synonymous with the Game Boy, it's Tetris, and that is nuts, considering how Tetris isn't even a Nintendo game. I mean, the Game Boy version is published by them, but like originally Tetris wasn't even made for the Game Boy. It's an ancient PC title that was first released on a Soviet computer. And Tetris gets developed by like 80 different studios. Like the most popular version ever was the old mobile version developed by EA. Tetris DS was another Nintendo one. The arcade port was done by Atari. The Japanese arcade version was made by Sega, who also did Puyo Puyo Tetris. Tetris, the Grandmaster, was Capcom, and Microsoft even had their own version for Windows. And I'm not kidding about this one. Tetris Mindbenders, a browser version of Tetris, was made by Red Bull. Tetris has a scientific phenomenon named after it, the Tetris effect, where if you do an activity long enough, you start to hallucinate things about it. There is an official Tetris game named after this, and it's the best version of Tetris if I have something to say about it. Oh yeah, unlike Tetris gave birth to the falling block subgenre of puzzle games, which means Tetris Attack would not have been possible without Tetris. Now you'd probably say, of course not. The fucking Tetris game, you dipshit, but shh. It's only a Tetris game in name only. It's a Tino. It's a localization of the game Panel de Pon, and the series is currently known as Puzzle League. So yeah, Tetris for puzzle games, no doubt, but there's also other types of puzzle games like Portal.
Portal 2 is one of my favorite games of all time, and I don't even care. So, let's race on over to the racing genre to talk about a game that I hate, but it did start something new. Super Mario Kart fucking sucks, and it's the worst Mario Kart game, but it's also the reason racers weren't just this for the remainder of time. Not to say this is bad, it's just there's not much variety in it.
Sure, like F-Zero existed back then on the same system, and I love F-Zero, but it's not wacky enough. Mario Kart's wacky, and that's the only other merit any other kart racer has, except maybe the Sonic racers, those were good. You only know shit like Racing with Ryan is even known at all because of how stupid it is. Like, this kid with a YouTube channel got his own racing game? Well, put a stick in my ass and call me a corn dog because I have a YouTube channel.
But you're an adult.
Well, take that stick out my ass and call me butt fucked because that sucks.
Don't even try that joke.
Sorry. Well, the other kinds of racing games still exist, obviously. The Mario Kart series might as well be the most popular racing games. It's always either one of, if not the best-selling game on every Nintendo platform that it's on. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is the best-selling game on the Nintendo Switch, and that's a re-release of the Wii U entry, which was the best-selling game on the Wii U. It just sets a precedent that we need to normalize being wacky and silly instead of serious. Vote me for president 2024. Also, like, you always know when something Mario Kart is coming out. Does anyone know they released a brand new Forza game last year? While not much to say about Super Mario Kart, there's absolutely no doubt that the game had, and still has, influence over the genre.
Finally, we reach the sandbox genre, and there's no game that I feel fits more in here than Minecrafter. Minecraft isn't just the most influential game in its genre, it's one of the first indie games to really hit it big on the internet zeitgeist. And it's the best-selling video game of all fucking time.
You can build brown bricks in Minecraft. It's the most fun you can possibly have while playing an app. Like, Minecraft ain't the first sandbox game. There's like Roller Coaster Tycoon and Garry's Mod, both of which came out well before Minecraft. But Minecraft had simplicity on its side. Gmod, you have to do this, a little bit of that, and that. And then you kind of have a penis. But in Minecraft, just place blocks and boom, that's it. Okay, guys. I mean, there's a reason this game is really popular with everyone. The people who grew up with this game are currently becoming adults, and there's still millions of kids around the world currently growing up with Minecraft. I first played this game over 11 years ago when I was like 7 or 8 or whatever. I remember being really hyped over the addition of horses. It's definitely one of the most important titles of the 2010s. It's been used in educational settings as well as being an outlet for creativity. I made a castle when I was 9. Look at this shit. Now I only build houses because I've fallen from grace. Anyway, those are just some games I felt like had been influential to their respective genres. If you have a different opinion on some of the genres I mentioned, if you feel like I completely skipped one, or if you just want to mention a smaller subgenre with a game that influenced it, leave a comment. I'd love to hear it. It'll certainly be different from all the Woz clone comments and death threats I get under every video. Those are fun to deal with.
Hey, I got a genre you didn't mention. Yeah, he's got a good one.
Yeah, sure, what is it?
The dragon genre.
Never heard of it. Enlighten me.
Dragging these nuts across your face.
You mother...